Welcome to this week's Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. These hangouts are brought to you by the Beyond Bitcoin crew. We encourage everyone to freely share these recordings and to help spread the knowledge and benefits of our DPoS 2.0 blockchain technology that we all call BitShares. While listening to this recording, please feel free to visit our website, beyondbitcoin.org, and be sure to stay tuned in for some additional information at the end of the recording. As always, we would like to say thank you, and we appreciate your support. So please continue to vote for our delegate or worker contract so we may continue providing these valuable services to our community members. So once again, welcome, and please enjoy this week's Hangout.
Welcome everybody to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout with the BitShares community and Bytemaster from BitShares and Cryptonomex. Today is Friday, September 18th, 2015. We're joined again by Bytemaster, who is going to give us some project updates. And as always, then we will go into community questions. So with that said, Bytemaster, please feel free to get started with the updates.
All right. It's been a busy week. Since last week we had the countdown begin. We are now racing against the clock to prepare everything for the final release. And I still feel good about hitting that release schedule and upgrading. This week we did publish a new version of BitShares 0.9.3, which hard codes in the upgrade date and time as the last block that will be produced. That's the only hard fork there. Any witnesses or delegates that do not wish to upgrade at that time, you can continue using the old code. And in the event that something happens in the next several weeks that causes us to have to postpone that, all a witness has to do is downgrade to 0.9.2 and it will be postponed. There's a lot of debate on the forum about whether or not we should put that code in there. I put that in there primarily to facilitate easier snapshotting on our side. Our nodes will stop accepting blocks and we can just take a snapshot of the head block state at that time. It also means that if the majority of witnesses do that, everyone else will see low witness participation and be warned that something is up when they use their client. So I think overall it's the right move. There have been other options suggested, such as just disabling transactions after that time, but continuing to have witnesses produce blocks. That would be a majority attack where the majority continue to operate their old nodes to prevent the minority from producing a blockchain at all. I think that the downside to that approach is that it requires all the existing delegates to maintain their delegate node, and they're no longer be paid for maintaining that node. And it's also taking away the right of the minority to continue with BitShares 1 code base if they so choose. So anyone who wants to upgrade will just stop producing blocks at that point in time, and everyone else who doesn't can continue producing blocks and the network will continue. So the hard fork update was provided for those who want to upgrade to make sure that they don't accidentally produce blocks after that time and to overall make things cleaner for those who are upgrading. It also comes with 2 new API calls, one for generating the snapshot and the other for exporting your private keys from BitShares to a format that can be imported into the Graphene wallet.
Tess is asking when 0.9.3 Windows version will be available. Do you have any idea with regard to any of these different OSs?
Well, there was a draft release of the Windows version. Apparently, some people had some problems, and so there was a recall of the 0.9.3 release that Dan Notestein but I haven't investigated that, but we will be investigating what the issues were, because there were relatively minor changes from 0.9.2. So we'll investigate that to figure out why some people were reporting crashes. It might just be this same old crashes that we're used to seeing on the Windows build. I'm running that release as my primary client right now. So from my perspective, it was working fine, but we will just watch GitHub for those release updates. Regular users don't need to do anything. This is not a priority unless you want to participate in the next test network by importing your balances from BitShares. So that's most of what happened this past week.
Real quick, before you move on, Crypto Prometheus asked a question that I think will probably be very valuable for a lot of the people who aren't always on the forums and looking around. He asks here, can private keys from 0.9.2, and I'm assuming 9.3, also be easily imported into Graphene when BitShares 2 comes out?
Yes, that's the point of the 0.9.3 release, is to export it in a more friendly format for importing into Graphene.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Just felt like it might be something that everybody needs to hear.
So core is just if you've been using the test network, we've been calling it the core asset. That's because Graphene is a generic asset and we wanted a generic name for the test network. But it will be BTS when we fork the Graphene code base into the final BitShares release. So Graphene is our toolkit. It's kind of like the base reference toolkit on BitShares. And we'll be forking it, and then that's going to be what will be hosted at the BitShares GitHub repository, not the Cryptonomex GitHub repository. So when BitShares is finally released, it's going to be where it's always been, in the repository, with the BTS token name. We've fixed a lot of issues in the past week, issues that were discovered during the prior test network. And the next test network, which is going to come out today, if I can manage it, is going to have 3-second blocks, going to be running on a diverse set of servers, and it's going to resolve the issues we found. The major thing we fixed is when there's an orphan block, the transactions in that block did not get migrated, which, as some of you who observed the test network flooding noticed, that sometimes your transactions just wouldn't get included in the blockchain. And that's because we were losing track of some of the pending transactions. We've refactored how we manage pending transactions. Those changes have been committed, and that should be a lot more robust now. So transactions should not get lost during temporary orphan blocks. Other than that, we have one last outstanding issue that we are going to resolve before the test network, and that issue is the witness scheduling algorithm is currently biased toward down witnesses that haven't produced blocks, which means that we're magnifying the impact of a single witness going down because they get selected to go again and again toward the end of a round because they haven't gone that round yet, even though they missed their turn. So we're putting in some extra changes to make sure that a witness that misses a block is properly tracked and not selected again that round.
Is there a reason for that?
Right now, one witness goes down causes the participation rate to fall by more than one out of however many witnesses. So,
gotcha.
So it's really bad for the network. It comes in spurts. At the beginning of a round, you got high participation, and toward the end of the round, the participation falls off as the number of witnesses that we're randomly selecting among is shrinking. It eventually means that we're going to keep selecting the bad witness more often until we get to the full end of the round. And then all witnesses become eligible again. So we have a fix that's about a one-line fix that we could roll out, but we want to analyze the impacts of that before we launch the next test network. This next test network, we're hoping to be the last test network and to last through basically become the dev chain if all goes well. So,
oh, cool. So BitShares will still exist?
We're still going to have a dev network, yes, for upgrading and testing things beforehand. So but we want to make sure that any updates that we wish to apply or hard forks we wish to apply in the future, that we actually test those hard forks on a chain that has some life to it. So I'm not saying that the next test network will be DevShares, but our goal is that it will become it.
That's cool. I've been wanting to ask a lot about DevShares, and you tend to, like, you see me wanting to ask a lot, but I didn't want to like bring it in every single hangout. Like, so it's cool to hear how this is going to progress.
I'm going to go so far as to say it won't be the DevShares network, because we won't relabel the core asset to DVS or any of those things. So when we create the Genesis block for BitShares 2, we'll use the same Genesis block for DevShares and launch those simultaneously.
Have you guys thought about DevShares, like the testing network, at all, as far as the whole crazy shares idea or anything like that, where people can just try whatever they want on it?
Nope. We want the test network to be as similar to the main network as possible. The only thing that should get voted into the test network are features that people want to have voted into the main network.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, it doesn't serve the purpose of testing our upgrades.
Sure. Do you think this would be a good time for anybody to ask any specific questions?
Go ahead and ask away.
Do you have more? Well, this is a good point. I like to stop it here for a moment and just ask anybody if they have any questions, concerns, comments. I know that a lot of the people who are here are working on projects on their own. So if there's something that is project specific to you, feel free to also bring it up. This is a good time to do so.
I'd like to bring up that Coinbase right now is giving a referrer $75 if somebody buys $100 worth of Bitcoin. And since people are going to need to buy Bitcoin to get into BitShares and to pay that $100 as part of my Schmidt coin website, which is going to try to sign people up, I'm going to make a deal where I will give some or all of that $75 towards anybody who applies it towards the BitShares lifetime membership.
Nice.
Do we decide on a 30-day window for vesting the fees for the referral program?
That's a good question. The original proposal was 1 year. There's been lots of debates between 30 days and 3 months. So that is certainly something that can be tweaked with by the delegates or committee members after release. So I think the general consensus is 1 year is too long. I think 30 days is too short, so we'll probably do 3 months.
So does anybody have a concern that these vested balances will be sold? Because it doesn't, I don't know what effect the selling of these tokens has on our network as far as the market cap. Some people speculate that it's a lot.
Are you changing subject?
Could be.
Are you changing subject from the vesting market fees, or vesting cashback, or are you talking about the vesting 2.0? The vesting merger shares.
You mean I'm talking about the referral? Or is that where the vesting comes in?
The purpose of vesting on the referral side is to prevent undermining of the referral program by someone who. All right. First of all, only membership upgrades vest. Transfer fees and other fees don't vest at all. With the referral cashback program, if it's a transaction fee and it's small, that is available immediately. But if you're doing something like buying a premium name or a subscription or lifetime membership, those will vest. And that was the compromise that we discussed on the forums months ago, to satisfy those who want to get some income and then reinvest it in ad streams and things like that, while still preventing people from gaming the system to basically give lifetime memberships away for free.
Makes sense.
You pay the lifetime membership fee and then it's immediately vested and I give you your money back. okay, so now it didn't actually cost anything. And if that happened, it would undermine the incentive structure of the entire network. So by requiring vesting, it means that if you sign up through someone, you've got to trust them for a month, or at the very least, they've got to float funds for a month or several months in order to give people that type of incentive. So that's why we have vesting, and that's why it's not the sell pressure that we're worried about. It's the undermining of the referral program altogether that we're worried about.
Makes sense. It's just, I always wonder what's going to be next. Have there been any things that have popped up recently other than maybe the network protocol, that you were just kind of like, wow, that's interesting. Didn't foresee that coming. Well, maybe you did see the network protocol thing needing to be changed for a while.
The network code is a very complex piece of software to manage everything from firewalls to connections to syncing to forks. It needs to handle a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of complexity there. That's why we did not want to rewrite it from BitShares. Unfortunately, it seems that Graphene is exposing bugs that probably exist in the BitShares code base. We think we've fixed a lot of those issues in the networking code. But the one thing that we haven't been able to fix is the fundamental architecture of the networking code, which is the advertise inventory, then fetch the data. So that's why we have 3-second blocks instead of 1-second blocks at this time. We have been running an internal test networks that you guys have not been participating in. And that internal network is comprised of several different computers in different locations. And we're getting an average latency on blocks of less than 35 milliseconds. So it seems like there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do 1-second blocks at scale when it's been ticking along here for a long time at very low latencies between blocks, even though we have many different computers involved in different geographical locations. These are a combination of nodes on home computers, in the office, and DigitalOcean. So they're all on the East Coast, I would guess. So it's not showing around the world times, obviously.
So none of the, this is a good place to ask you then, with the open testnet, that does have nodes from around the world, right?
Yes, the next testnet will have nodes from around the world, and we'll be tracking the latency information very carefully. And we're also going to be tracking the missed blocks and voting in every witness with actual voting. So anyone who's participating in the test network who stops producing blocks or is not reliable will be voted out until they beg to be voted back in and say that they're really on top of things now. If you're going to participate in the next test network, I would actually encourage everyone who intends to become a witness in BitShares 2 to participate in the test network. If you do not participate in the test network, then I will not be voting for you as a witness in BitShares 2. So I'd actually like to talk about the BitShares 2 witness pay. As you know, witnesses will be paid a fixed pay rate based upon per block, and it will be set by the committee members with stakeholder approval. And I wanted to target that pay rate for those witnesses to be $300 per month. My thinking there is that a witness should provide a high quality node on Amazon, and they should be compensated for their time of maintaining the witness and keeping it up to date. And $300 should easily cover the hosting cost, and it pays a nominal value for the time spent maintaining it, depending on the efficiency of the individual. They can either be making $100 an hour, or they can be making $10 an hour. But hopefully they don't need to use more than 20 hours a month maintaining their witness. So does anyone have any feedback about setting the witness pay to $300 a month approximate in BitShares?
I think that's a pretty good value there, Bytemaster. I think that's reasonable. Plenty for server costs, as well as for compensation of time and effort to maintain the node.
Fox is asking what the expected number of witnesses was, but I believe you said 55 is what you thought it would probably be at, right? Somewhere
when we launch the network, we're going to have 16 witnesses, or 15 witnesses or so, all run by us, but probably 2 witnesses per computer initially. And then the goal is that we're going to vote in as many as the stakeholders want to vote for. So if you want to get up to 55 witnesses, then people need to get out the vote, and the median of all stakeholder votes need to vote for at least 55 witnesses. So that should be a little bit easier if people vote for proxy witnesses and the like. But keep in mind that if you have 55 witnesses, 55 times 300 is how much per month we'd be spending on witnesses.
Will the witness pay be proportional to the value of BTS, or will it be fixed so that as the market cap increases, it maintains the same level, or will it increase with the market cap?
The parameter in the blockchain is set in terms of BitShares, so it will fluctuate with the blockchain, but periodically we can reset the pay to the long-term moving average price, so that if the price goes up and stays up, then we can lower the pay rate so that it averages 300.
Periodic adjustments would be what we foresee to keep the pay reasonably low and reasonable.
Correct. Now, there would be a 2-week period from the time the adjustment is approved by the committee members to the time it takes effect. The witnesses an opportunity to, give some feedback on the proposed changes, and the stakeholders an opportunity to review it and decide if the pay went up too much, went down too much, or so forth. So yes, if BitShares doubles, then they will make 600 for a brief period of time, but they also risk that BitShares could fall, and then they'd be making 150. So if they end up making 600 for a period of time, then the next pay adjustment might actually adjust downward so that it's slightly underpaid. So we can average it out with a series of moves, but if a witness ends up making 600 because the price went up, the cost to the BitShares network was was denominated in BitShares, and we anticipated that number of BitShares. Congratulations, they profit by supporting the network and doing a good job and causing the price to go up. If they do a poor job and there's a lot of network disruptions and the price goes down, their pay will go down. So I think it's good to have their pay tied to the value of BitShares increasing.
And also, by the way, in Graphene, there is all witnesses are basically 100%. There's no percentage of witness pay this time around, correct?
Correct. No, witness pay is a flat rate.
So this, I suppose, might be unnecessarily complex to try to implement, considering there's different currencies, fiat currencies in different places in the world, but maybe not specifically for witness pay, but for things such as transaction fees. I'm just wondering, with the potential volatility, either up or down of the price of BTS, how are we going to basically be, scrambling to reset the transaction fee, paid in BTS every 2 weeks, because all of a sudden now people are paying, $2 to send a transaction, and, now it's 10 cents, and now it's, $3. And how is there a way to, potentially in the future set a transaction fee to be a pegged fee, like it's always going to be 20 US cents, or the equivalent in euro or CNY or something like that?
It's possible to use a price feed produced by the witnesses for something like BitUSD to set the fee in the future. We did not implement that feature because we didn't want to assume BitUSD existed. For now, it's not going to be as bad as what you described, because if we have that kind of volatility, we're going to have black swans left and right. So I'm not worried about the fees changing faster than we can adjust it. So yes, if the price goes up by 50% in a day, it might go from 20 cents to 30 cents. And if it looks like it's going to stay up there, then we probably have a proposal put out that would change the fee. And if the price goes down again, then we can have another one. So we can adjust the prices at a average rate, but I don't think we should sweat the if the fees become a factor in deciding whether or not you want to use the network within the volatility range, then it's probably the fees are too high. So if you're plus or minus 15% of whatever the fee is, and the fee is less than 1% of the transaction size you're doing, who cares?
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Crypto?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear. Like, you see, this is the awesome thing about bringing everybody together, is all of you have questions that I would never think of, and you bring up some very valid points that otherwise, if you're just listening to this, you might be able to go and post underneath the Hangouts, but you really wouldn't get all the answers that you get here. Real quick, I know that we talked a little bit about DevShares earlier. It seems that I missed a question from Zeldal. He's saying here, is this correct? DevShares 2.0 are being snapped from BTS 9.2, not DVS 9.2. So all current DevShares are worthless. Does it make sense? Bytemaster keeps saying that it's coming from BTS. However, Vikram has stated that it's coming from DevShares. I'm assuming there's a miscommunication here somewhere along the lines, but would you be able to clarify that for everybody? Or maybe we should say, you'll talk to Vikram and everybody and see what's going on, or?
Yeah, we need to figure out a strategy behind the scenes. I'm trying to minimize the amount of work required to launch it. I am not opposed to snapshotting the DevShares chain using the same method that we snapshot the BitShares chain. The only reason I said what I said was to keep it easy and consistent, and to keep the test of graphene to be as similar as possible to the test environment for BitShares 2. Taking different snapshots at Genesis may or may not have impact on things, but I am not opposed to snapshotting off of DVS because I guess some people have been maintaining it, expecting DevShares to be potentially worth something, and that was part of the goal, was to have DevShares be worth something. And I still want to maintain the proposition that DevShares are worth something, so that we can have a functional bit assets on it. That said, the DevShares chain has not been used much since we started graphene, because there's no sense in applying our patches to DevShares, because we don't need that testing environment anymore. We're figuring something out there. Is honestly something I have not thought a whole lot about at this point in time.
Sure. I mean, the question that I have is, I mean, I don't know where everybody does stand. I personally always thought that DevShares was cool, but I don't know if that's just, I just thought they were cool, and I'm lacking some understanding of why it would be better off to not have them exist, or what. Maybe we could have a community poll and kind of help give you guys some idea where the community stands on it and why.
It'd be good to have some community feedback on that. I'd like to switch from DevShares for a second to just another topic, which I think is probably more important than DevShares, and that is the witness pay. So at the current price, someone did the calculations, 300 USD is 60,000 BitShares times 101 witnesses is 6 million shares per month, which is 72 million shares a year. I want to remind everyone that the network itself has a hard-coded spending limit of 5 BitShares per second, which is the current max inflation rate supported by the BitShares network. If witness pay is greater than, if we specify witness pay greater than that max spending limit, the witness pay will be, I need to verify what happens, but Either some witnesses will randomly not get paid every round. Basically, we cap the spending. So you don't have to worry about more inflation than we said. What it means is that if we hire more witnesses, we can pay for less workers. And that's about what it comes down to. Right now, we've got a lot that are running duplicate nodes, multiple witnesses on a single node. I don't want that to happen in BitShares 2. There's no security provided by having more than one witness on a given node. And the other thing is that we have higher transaction fees, and so transaction fees add to the amount that we can spend. And if we have a lot of people that are paying to upgrade to become members, and we start increasing our revenue for the network, then that will help. Also, if the price goes up as a result of this, then the dilution rate can fall dramatically. So it's just a matter of figuring out how we want to allocate our resources. Do we want to pay for more development, or do we want to pay for more witnesses and redundancy in the network? So, and I think that by having a fixed price here and a fixed daily budget, it becomes very clear how much we pay for decentralization and how much any network pays for decentralization. If you want a bunch of low quality witnesses that are doing this at a loss, then you can support more witnesses. But if you want high quality witnesses that you can vote for and that they'll participate in improving the network, can be useful in helping debug issues, be responsive when something happens, I think the network is probably more secure and going to be more reliable with fewer witnesses. Now, we picked 101 because it was a big number, and it sounds more impressive than saying that you've got 31 witnesses or 15 witnesses. But the reality is, when you're small, we can grow it at any time. If we need more, we can vote in more, and witnesses get paid before workers. So we can make sure that we can have as much decentralization as we want to pay for. But I think, I was just doing the analysis of how much I would want to be compensated for maintaining a node, and I don't want us to have any illusions that we're depending upon charity for the security of the network. So I guess it's then the stakeholders' decision of, do they want to try to pay witnesses less? Then go ahead. So 300 was just a number I threw out there under the expectation that we would probably have 24 witnesses or so.
It would be interesting to see like a table that shows as it scales how many witnesses will be able to be paid what. Because at this market cap, it might be 10, 12, but you double the market cap and you automatically basically double the amount of witnesses that can be run on it, right? I mean, it's probably not quite that simple, but that's the general idea. So I'd like to see how it would scale to much larger market caps and show people how quickly this grabs momentum.
Cryptonomex does not plan to run any witness nodes beyond temporarily when we're launching until we can vote in people outside of Cryptonomex to take over. So it's not that we don't want to run a witness node, but since we are developers of the software, we already have enough exposure. So we want to decentralize any exposure we can. So development's going to be separate from witnesses. We'll be separate from committee members and workers. Now, we're going to be a worker, and we will have several worker proposals to fund ongoing development and support of BitShares. So our role will be in the worker category, not the witness category.
Can worker proposals be denominated in a bit asset as well, or are they restricted to proposing BTS as the payment?
BTS is the payment mechanism.
From what Fuzzy was saying a minute ago, it's not just a matter of how many witnesses can be supported, but how many witnesses are necessary.
Right. So how many are necessary is different from how many can be supported. In my opinion, if you have 1 or 2 witnesses on each continent, you're probably got all that you need. they're not going to get all shut down at the same time. And if everyone's using proxy voting, if something does come up, it doesn't take much to start up a new witness or pick new people to replace the current witnesses. But obviously, this is something that we get picked on for 101 is too few. But to some extent, 101 is too many if we don't have the voter attention span to actually audit and review 101 individuals. You end up with these anonymous delegates getting elected, like Black Widow. I don't know who he is, but he's got a lot of votes, and he's been in the top 101 several times. The long tail of witnesses that get in because of voter apathy is a security risk in its own right, and that needs to be balanced. So we want as many witnesses as the stakeholders can actively vote for and choose to vote for, and that the stakeholders consider worth paying for. And I don't think, people like to say, well, a $20 VPS system. Well, guess what? A $20 VPS system is going to result in higher latencies. If there is a flood on the network of people trying to push a lot of transactions through, that node is going to be a potential problem if it can't keep up with all the other nodes. Graphene is very efficient and can run on a $20 VPS, but the RAM usage of the network can grow faster than bandwidth in some extents. So your nodes need to be able to upgrade, and we need to assume that we're paying for a decent VPS provision, and that it's profitable to be a witness. If it's not profitable to be a witness, then you're not going to have competition over those slots, which means you're not going to have quality. And I think I would prefer quality over quantity. And I think that's just my opinion. I'm just one stakeholder. That's how I'm going to vote. But obviously, if the greater BitShares community wants to lower the pay and have quantity rather than quality, they can.
I think your analysis is very good, Bytemaster, and I do agree that we probably don't need as many as we've had in the past. I do also think that we need to be cautious and roll out the correct number of witnesses as necessary, and that requires good monitoring and metrics to be able to gauge that well. But I think you're right on the money, Bytemaster, in terms of not needing as many as we currently have, starting it off with a known good set of delegates that can be relied upon and are responsive, and then let things grow from there as we need it. But there's a lot of politics, so to speak, involved in terms of how much people feel decentralization is necessary in terms of the number of witnesses that are out there. So it's not just a purely technical thing, because people's perception of what decentralization requires in terms of the number of witnesses is also a factor here.
Well, I'll say something that, to me, that you hit on really well was let it grow as it needs to. Because, I mean, I see things like Depot's Hub and these different initiatives as these tools get put into place, and they're helping us become more efficient at choosing and participating in these different events and the things that we need to do, actively participate in the network itself. You're right. I think that this will grow on its own.
Yes, those tools are essential, and I think without those tools, we don't have a good feeling of just what's necessary to make sure that the nodes are running well and there's enough of them. There's also the issue of allegations of centralization because there's not enough nodes, but that's more political than it is anything else. So the metrics and monitoring is crucial to make sure you can make a good case of why the given number of witnesses at any point in time is adequate and proper.
We need to, as a community, be very careful not to fall into the traps that people lay for you, particularly in the myths of decentralization. That in Bitcoin they claim is decentralized, but it's not. The myth that the other proof of stake systems have anywhere near 101, or that they're anywhere near that decentralized. The blog posts I have made in the past that have analyzed the other blockchains show that something like Next, which I think is the second best proof of stake to DPoS, only large stakeholders, the large stakeholders produce the vast majority of the blocks. Something on the order of 15 of the largest forgers produce 90% of the blocks. Well, guess what? Those are the only forgers that matter. The fact that some other random individual can periodically get a block in doesn't matter. As soon as you have 51% of the power, everyone else is just allowed to exist at the with the permission of the majority, right? There's like, okay, we'll let you include it just so that, you know, it provides cover for the fact that we are centralized. So every other system out there has nowhere near 101. And in fact, 24 or so clearly separate independent entities that aren't running on the same server is more decentralized than everything else out there. It's purely a matter of perception, and we don't want to make design or spending decisions as far as spending the BitShares daily budget, trying to fight the people that say, oh, you're not decentralized, you need to spend more money, as if spending more money on it actually changes our position from being the most decentralized system out there. And there's also a separate issue. We have decentralization of control, which is separate from decentralization of production. And understanding that the stakeholders, we are the most decentralized in the sense that every stakeholder has influence proportional to their shares. That is not true in any other system. In Peercoin and Next, your influence isn't proportional to your shares, because in order to execute your influence, you've got to pay more than your shares would forge just to run a full node. So anyone who doesn't have a large number of shares has zero influence. And that's just the fact of the matter. So if we allow people to, and these are the loudmouths that just want to sling mud and make us look bad. There's no facts behind what they're saying, and we need to have the resolve and know ourselves and our technology, and the truth of the situation is different than what they're saying. And we need to educate the masses and not allow them to scare us into making irrational choices to pay for unnecessary, unprofitable decentralization. And when we're small, you need to start small. You need to start with a few number of people, and you can grow. The main thing is we can grow to support as much decentralization as the stakeholders want, and there is no limit. I removed the ceiling of 101. We can now have 1,001 if we wanted. But keep in mind, 1,001 nodes running on a $20 VPS is $20,000 a month. So, yeah, that's not including any of the labor associated with running those nodes.
The truth of the matter is that the decentralization issue boils down to who the big stakeholders are. If you don't know who the big stakeholders are, therefore you don't know how many there are, then you really don't know how much. Because if you knew, for example, that there were 5 big stakeholders combined together provide a majority of the stake. I know that's not the case, but as an example, if that was the case, then the people that wanted to attack the network could attack those 5 major stakeholders. So there's a trade-off between knowing who those stakeholders are so that you know what the level of decentralization is versus their anonymity, which protects them. So I don't know how, having a proof of stake guarantees to a certain degree it's as fair as possible, but I still think that if there's a way to determine who those stakeholders are, and you see what I'm saying? There's a trade-off between those two things, anonymity of the big stakeholders and how many there are as terms of the number of how much decentralization there is.
That's a good question. It's like kind of like walking a tightrope between the two the two polarities.
This is where proxy voting is going to really change the game. I think that if we want to maximize decentralization of control, it would be wise to have 20 or 30 individuals, each with a lot of people specifying them as their proxy. So if each of those 30 individuals controls several percent of the vote, and they're all actively involved, then there's no super whale out there who can manipulate things around, because everyone else has basically nominated 30 mining pools, if you will, instead of 5 mining pools. And these proxy voters, they don't need to run servers. They have no cost. So we can support a whole lot of proxy voting nodes. And that will give us a lot of decentralization in terms of control. And it will prevent the large stakeholders from controlling the network simply because they're coordinated, right? They can coordinate their entire stake and they can vote at once as a block. But having a large number of users set up to be trusted proxy voters will concentrate stake from thousands of users down into 30 users who then vote to select the witnesses and so on and so forth. It'll cause better decisions to be made than the direct democracy approach that BitShares 1.0 used. So yes, proxy voters are kind of like congressmen. And that's how the little guy can concentrate his stake and make it as effective as a whale.
But at the same time, it ensures that if one of these proxy voters is doing something, they're in the public eye, and that we don't have to wait 2 years for them to be out of office.
Well, and we have to consider, I mean, the original purpose of, delegated democracy, or if you want to call it that, was that, people have lives. 300 years ago, most people had to, plow their fields and, take care of business, and they couldn't be bothered with every single, issue that came up and casting a vote for it. So they voted for people to go to, one central place and take care of business. And, I think that still applies in a lot of ways. I mean, there's going to be people that just, don't have the time or energy to keep up. And this is, I can't imagine something that could end up potentially working better than this proxy voting. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, like you said, Fuzzy, you can also instant out your quote unquote congressperson if you find out that they're doing something shady, or you just start to see that there's some nepotism or something that starts to become apparent, and it's just click of a button and you can withdraw your permission to allow them to vote for you, and it's all over. So.
Yeah, well, and these are just examples of the little things that that make me so excited. That's what you guys hear. Like, I get extremely excited about this stuff because we're literally here.
Well,
at a point in time
countries countries we be run with the graphene code base in the future? Well,
oh man,
it's possible with what the guys at Vote are working on.
Out of curiosity, Bytemaster, this is one thing that I've been hearing from people in the circles, and this is a little bit off of topic, but I want to get a couple things in. One is this one's going to focus around a little bit with Ethereum, because a lot of people in the Ethereum environment I'm talking to are saying that it's just very developer friendly. And they're saying that BitShares needs to work on that. Do you agree with that, or do you think that that's something that we're just in a different place, or as far as our own development and those tools will come later? How do you see that differentiation that these people are putting out?
I missed some of that at the beginning there, Fuzzy.
No, you're fine. I have a couple people who I've been talking to who are over in Ethereum. They've been in the BitShares ecosystem as well, obviously. But they're saying that it's very easy for anybody just to jump in and play around. It's like a sandbox. And that BitShares is extremely, like, you have to know what the heck you're doing. Like, there's no, like, it's much harder, a lot higher barrier to entry, I guess, would be the words that I get from it. They don't necessarily say that, but that's what I take, the takeaway. Do you feel like you have any comments on that, or any points that you'd like to make regarding that? Are they right?
Well, I'd say that making it easy for developers to get involved is a very high priority for us in going into 2016. You're going to be seeing a lot of stuff from us that makes it easier for developers in the future. Right now, it's not terrible to get involved. Our APIs are relatively easy to use. There's lots of people that can answer questions. People have been able to pick it up all on their own. The protocol itself is a lot easier to understand as far as the messages. You can construct a transaction with nothing but a JSON object and a signature. It's a lot easier to do that than it is in Bitcoin. So I think any system with a lot of users is going to appear to be easier to pick up because you've got more people to help you. There's just fewer people to help in this case, and so it seems more difficult. But at the end of the day, we're using React and WebSockets and JSON RPC and very standard stuff. And we're working on APIs to make it all easier. So there's that.
With that said, the reason I wanted, and I hate to say this, it's kind of like a plug though, because anybody can set up a big blue button server, but we do have those. And now that you've brought out this brownies idea, there's just so many things, because it's DKP to me, that's all I think of. So I start thinking, what can we do, right? These are ways of leveraging what the community already, there are many people who could go and maybe create little tutorials. Would you be interested in people creating tutorials and doing that from the community to help people get involved and do different stuff like that? Would that be a brownie worthy event?
Yes, basically anything you do to help other users is brownie worthy, in my opinion. So, keep posting on the thread. Brownies will be paid out periodically as I batch them up and do them all at once. I haven't forgotten about it. We are actively tracking it here with someone looking at it every day and making notes in a spreadsheet of who needs to get paid out so that I can come back and review and make payouts. Obviously I don't want brownies to delay the launch of BitShares 2. That would be counterproductive from a brownie perspective. So I appreciate the patience everyone has on that. It's there to track things. I have not forgotten you. I just want to get that out there. Someone asked some questions about OpenLedger. From my understanding, OpenLedger is the branding CCEDK is putting on our wallet. So they've got a lot of plans for promoting it far and wide, but OpenLedger is just a rebranding of the hosted web wallet and all the different exchanges that plug into BitShares, such as CCEDK, Banks, and Bunker. Those parties are all part of the OpenLedger concept. So it's more like an idea, philosophy of doing things on an OpenLedger. I don't know everything Ronnie has planned for it, but it's basically a branding of what we're trying to push with BitShares.
Just so everybody who's listening knows, CCDK, aka Ronnie, says, we love BitShares and want OpenLedger to be the new place to go to enjoy both worlds. We love you too, Ronnie.
So I would say OpenLedger is to BitShares what blockchain.info is to Bitcoin. I guess plus integrating a lot of features that Ronnie's providing, such as fiat deposit withdrawal and other things. It's a platform for doing a bunch of different things, and I don't know everything that Ronnie's chosen to reveal about it, but I really like the OpenLedger branding. I think it really promotes clearly what this is all about. What is BitShares about? Having an open public ledger for all exchanges, and so I really like it.
Well, what's cool is that for so long, everybody's, you hear these things about the marketing for BitShares being the weakest point, but really, it's just, the more I see this unfold, the more I see that everything, as this ecosystem grows, people are coming in and branding it, like you said, like OpenLedger, right? Now they're marketing OpenLedger, which is BitShares, right? So all these different, now we're starting to see what's going to happen, a template that are these templates that are being built that others are going to mimic, kind of like Crypto was saying the last hangout. So it's really exciting to me to watch and to have been here for all this and then to see this stuff starting to happen. So yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff.
I can say that things like Open Ledger and a few others are an example of companies that want to have a brand that they can advertise and users to the BitShares platform. What it means is people say, what is Open Ledger? They're going to investigate it, and then in the fine print, they'll, oh yes, this is just BitShares. But it's going to get a lot of new users in the door investigating what is this all about. And when they see an ad for banks or Bunker Exchange or something like that, people will go check it out and they're, oh, okay, I see what's going on. It's a different skin or whatnot. They'll be competing to offer the best experience to the BitShares users. So BitShares becomes the protocol on the back end, and the Open Ledger becomes the A brand of front end. And I think that's really going to work out well for everyone. It allows Ronnie to monetize all of his efforts in marketing. And it's very clear that Ronnie is very good at what he's doing. He gets a lot of users. He gets articles on Forbes, and he's well connected, with money transmitter abilities. Those are the type of people that can pick up BitShares and take it to the moon. So I'm really, really happy to be working with CCEDK, and I think our partnership with them will combine great technology with great marketing and take us where we need to go.
And good people. Because let's face it, I don't think some of us in the community tend to butt heads, but we really get along when it comes to what really matters from what I've seen. So it's really awesome. Yeah. Bytemaster, we are 11 minutes over. So if you would like to bow out, you're more than welcome to. I just want to let you know, you know how this works. If you stay here for 2 or 3 hours, we will not stop.
I'm super appreciative of everyone who shows up. I just have so much fun talking with you all in the community. It's a great discussion, and enjoy all your brownies.
Well, we get 38 PTS Warriors friend in here. He can maybe make pot brownies.